Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on the importance of using film to promote your destination. My name is Rob Peters. I'm the content manager at Wesgro, and I've been fortunate enough to work with a number of incredibly talented local filmmakers over the course of my career. A couple of who are actually on this panel today. So I'm very excited to get stuck in and start talking about this. I've seen personally how film has grown in terms of marketing destination, from standard short destination videos to longer, more story-orientated short films to festival-ready films that really create more of a buzz and get more eyes on the brand and the product itself. So today we've got a really great panel. We've got Rupert Fitchett and Rory Appleton from Sledgehammer Studio, who I've worked with in the past, both during my time at Cape Town Tourism and more recently at Wesgro. We have Craig Howes from So Community, who's worked on international projects, both in photography and in film. And then we have our very own Monica Rawvik, who's the head of film and media promotion at Wesgro. Unfortunately, Antoinette Monti from Durban Film Mart is unable to make it today, but Monica is more than capable of handling that side of the discussion, and I'm looking forward to getting stuck in. If you could all please, any questions you have, if you can pop those in the Q&A section, and we'll get to as many of those as we can at the end of the session. Welcome to all our panelists. If we will start with Rupert and Rory. Welcome, guys, and I'll let you kick things off.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everyone, for having us on.
Give me a sec. Sorry.
All right. Cool. Thanks for having us on. We are Sledgehammer Studio. So how do we make destinations matter? Today we want to talk about a prevalent myth in destination marketing. We'll frame our thinking, solutions, and approach to creating films in the tourism space. Provide a few insights and lessons that we've learned over the years, and briefly touch on a few case study examples of projects that we've worked on and how this stuff applies in each. Then we'll take a little bit of time to explore what this means on a global stage, and how we can leverage global platforms to position ourselves favorably in the space. Cool, so we're going to dive right in, but first Rube's just going to take a moment to introduce us and what we're all about.
Hi guys, Rupert here. So yeah, I just want to give you an idea of what we do and how we fit into the kind of tourism travel film space. So we're a full service film production company based here in Cape Town, which means we work with our clients, for example, Wesgro, from concept to completion. So everything from initial brainstorming to final edit, color grade. And we do a bit of everything from corporate stuff, fashion, TVCs, but a space we found ourselves in and loving is destination marketing and tourism travel film. And it's just been a space which allows us to obviously travel, meet people, but also make the kind of films we really love making. And these are films that celebrate the human spirit through, like really breathtaking cinematic imagery, but one that allows us to kind of go to really hard to reach places and push the envelope of the travel film genre and ourselves, and taking really cinematic and really thoughtful storytelling to hard to reach places, which really helps push us and helps push the content and concepts we work with our clients to develop.
Cool. So the myth is our thing makes us special. So an example is of this is we have Table Mountain and that makes us cool, right? And this is a trap that we see creators fall into kind of over and over and over again. I know this might be a bit of maybe a risky example because everybody knows, you don't touch Cape Townians on their mountain. But yes, Table Mountain is, a iconic, unique, incredible, awesome, insert adjective here, place. But the thing is, every place on Earth has these iconic, unique, important, incredible things. So it takes more to make a destination film stand out and to be memorable. And in order to form a connection with any kind of film, there needs to be a story. All right, so this is as true in a complex narrative as it is in like an absolutely simple narrative. If there's no story, there's no connection. So what is story? So distilled down to its basic parts, a story begins somewhere, it ends somewhere, and between those 2 points, something has been learned or gained or experienced. Right. Cool. So this is an image that that it's a frame grab from one of our recent films called Chasing Lions. And I mean, you can tell by looking at it, like it doesn't necessarily say a lot. This is Wuppertal that you see down there in the trees. And, you know, by itself, this doesn't really give us anything. But then we meet this guy who lives there. And he tells us that the silence of this place, you feel like you can almost touch it. Importantly here, like that's not something we asked him to say. And it does sound better in Afrikaans. This is a translation. But, you know, immediately the place is humanized. There's a way that you can kind of connect to the place, the destination, through this guy, through his stories. We start to kind of develop a connection with him, and then, you know, the destination. So cool. So just want to talk a little bit about montage. And this is what we call, you know, just a series of kind of images or video clips strung together. And you see it everywhere without any kind of story. And especially in destination marketing, where it's like, again, that myth of like, look how cool this place is. And there's no kind of enduring connection that is formed as a viewer. You know, it's very easy to watch this kind of stuff. And I mean, like everybody's seen it on social media, etc. You're bombarded with it, you know, swipe to the next hashtag pretty mountain sunset, and, you know, the one you've just watched is kind of gone from your memory, right? So while montage is a very important part of filmmaking, again, we need story, and, you know, with the inclusion of story, montage plus story, we have journey. So there's just a few examples here, some case studies of work that we've done. The first one is Overberg Meander. So this is a cycle routes film that we did in collaboration with Wesgro, and kind of launching a route through the Overberg. It's like, I mean, we're talking about a really short 1 minute space in which you have to tell a narrative without any talking, without any text to speak of. So, you know, how do you do that? How do you introduce story? And, you know, we always are looking for what we call visual narrative. So how can we tell the story just through image and make that montage more than just montage and make it into a journey? So the links to these films will be available. You'll be able to go and watch them. But if I can just draw your attention to the image on the left there, you know, already, so the way it's framed, there's people walking through a sort of a doorway into an open space. It's from the back, and, you know, there's a reason that image is kind of near the beginning of the film, because it's like we're trying to say that we're walking into something here. There's something beyond, something that we're going to experience, right? And it's just really about, and I guess if there's any kind of takeaway that you can take from this whole presentation is I would just encourage you to, when you're creating things and looking for these stories that you always just kind of thinking about, like, you know, every decision I make goes towards some sort of story that like helps us humanize the narrative. In this situation, we're looking to make the destination the protagonist. Every good story needs a protagonist. How on earth do we make a destination a protagonist? You know, this is kind of what we're thinking about the whole time. So like on the picture of the right, what is the Overberg region, right? We thinking, okay, like the weather's can be a bit iffy. It can be rainy, sometimes dark and moody. You know, maybe there's a mysteriousness to that. How can we build that persona? So you can see it in the color treatment. You know, it's kind of dark and contrasty. And then, you know, again, just the more you can kind of keep thinking about these things, the more you can build something that, you know, with some success, has people latch onto it for a little bit longer and kind of remember it. By contrast, so this is interesting because it's an almost identical brief, but a cycle route through the Karoo. And there's, I mean, you can tell just by looking at the two, like there's already a very different feeling there. And if you were to watch
your consent on a few items to continue
one of them after the other, you would get the sense that like, okay, these are two very, very different stories. So for us, the story of the Karoo was you know, this is a kind of a romantic place. It's slow travel. I mean, you can see there's a kind of rosy sort of tint throughout the thing. And yeah, I mean, again, like we could just kind of encourage you when you're creating anything. And I mean, this applies to if you are shooting something with your cell phone or any kind of like content that you create, if there can be something story, something kind of human, some kind of personality that you can draw your audience in with, as long as you kind of keep those universal principles in mind, like you'll have good results.
Awesome. Thank you. The next kind of genre we want to touch on is the documentary style destination marketing film. And this is one that's super close to our heart because it's the kind of filmmaking we love. However, it's also a treatment that really goes to the core of the myth and helps dispel it almost immediately. So as Rory said, our things aren't, our place isn't special because our things are unique. Our place is special because our stories are special. And documentary film helps us to kind of put people, culture right at the forefront and really, really humanize the destination and also personify it. So it really, these are the elements that make our destination unique. And this documentary style filmmaking really helps us explore that genre to the fullest. They also allow us to craft destination films that are inspirational, aspirational, heartwarming, endearing, and really memorable. So yeah, just a few case studies that we've worked on. One is Connected by Trail, also worked with Rob on this project. And this was an interesting brief because in a sense, we had to combine destination marketing and adventure sports coverage. And it helped us to really personify the Cape Mountains and the Cape scenery and outdoor experience through the voices of the people that spend the most time in them. There's no one that knows these mountains better, both through, you know, triumphs and heartache, than the world-class trail runners that we featured in this. So through this documentary style approach, we were able to really humanize the mountains and give them a really personal and really endearing voice that people could latch onto. This film was specifically geared for the trail running community. So the docu style and the very personal little anecdotes that we could unravel and kind of explore throughout, we're really able to speak to the target market of this specific travel film. The next is Chasing Lions. This is our recent work with Discover Cape Town, the Western Cape. And it's a film that explores kind of the notion of adventure in all its shapes and forms throughout the province. This was an interesting brief because the brief was essentially connect all the districts in the Western Cape through adventure. So starting with this really abstract notion, adventure, and connecting really, 6 unique biomes and districts, we used the voice of a map maker, Peter Slingsby, and a contemporary kind of adventure photographer, Simon Pocock, to really give a human voice to all these places and help kind of paint a portrait of them. What the documentary treatment here also helped us do was meet all the people along the way that give all these places their amazing character. So, when you look at the Western Cape and all these unique districts, they are just lines on a map. But as soon as you meet the people, you kind of start filling in those lines with personalities and warmth and everything that makes that place good and unique and memorable.
Awesome. Cool. Cool. So I'll talk a little bit about the world stage. Interestingly now, just while I think on like this image that you see in the background, and maybe this can just help sort of illustrate our point. You don't really necessarily, looking at this, need to know, okay, where is that, right? But now if I tell you what she's actually doing, so she's holding a stick there, and this is Maggie Slingsby, 70 years old, I think. And she is literally about to poke a big bloody snake, like lying in the road, right? So immediately, okay, that's more interesting. What? Who is this lady? Why is she doing that? Where is she? Now you want to know, right? So like that, setting up those elements of story immediately just kind of like open the door to, well, just open curiosity, for a viewer. Anyway, so the world stage, we've had some experience kind of going to a couple of international tourism specific film festivals where some of our work has been recognized and done pretty well, at those festivals and got some awards and stuff. But interestingly, it kind of exposed us to a lot of different films and stuff being made by people from really just all parts of the world, and the kind of different voices that different regions and cities latch onto, and the way that people are marketing their stuff, and by and large, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, and honestly, a lot of it is very old school destination, look at the pretty thing, absolutely forgettable, and kind of formulaic, generic, and the stuff that stands out is kind of few and far between, and they've just kind of really lashed onto a really interesting, cool, memorable story. And I mean, if you can get that right, like everything else, like all the hard work that you put in afterwards is worth it, and success kind of follows in our experience.
Cool. So as Rory said, we've had quite a bit of experience on the SIFT circuit. With Wesgro, we've just submitted a film to its Grand Prix circuit, and we've had Connected by Trail, our trail running adventure film, on the circuit. So SIFT are a organization that facilitate the biggest kind of conglomerate of travel films all over the globe. And the value of this, as Rory said, is that you get exposed to what the global trends are, what storytelling works, what doesn't work. And you really get to have incredible conversations with people all over the world trying to sell their destination. And you kind of learn through both their triumphs in the great films they make, and also the kind of the deluge of fails. Yeah. However, it's also not just valuable for filmmakers to go there. I mean, the tourism body that really does clean up all the awards on the SIFT circuit is Catalonia and Madrid Tourism. They go there religiously. So it would be kind of the equivalent of Wesgro or Cape Town Tourism, for example. They go there and, you know, present their films as the tourism body itself. And then they kind of situate themselves as thought leaders in the space. And through that are promoting their destination even more widely, because they are now seen as kind of the poster boys of destination marketing.
Yeah. And I mean, kind of in between the film, like the film screening sessions, there's, you know, people kind of standing up and giving lectures about, I mean, it's really kind of geared towards creating a sort of a sharing space where, where, you know, people in the industry can really kind of connect and you know, explore in front of an audience, like the routes that they're taking and their kind of thinking and stuff. But yeah, I mean, yeah, as Ruben says, there's a lot of opportunity there to just kind of, you know, put yourself in a space that will let you, yeah, I mean, I guess have some presence in the space, and it's it's just a cool atmosphere.
Awesome. We've already, I think, gone over time, but just a recap, in promoting your destination, big or small, whether it's a tourism product or, you know, a small tourism product, or just, you know, a beach, the incorporation of story, whether it's shot on your cell phone or through a big cinematic production, is critical to really selling a destination and getting to the heart of it. Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys. I wonder if I can actually just fire a couple of questions now at you, and then we'll come back to it all later. But I think maybe not necessarily questions, but some statements that I picked up. And it's just the one thing that's always for me been so crucial to these videos is the story, obviously. And I think you often find that lacking, and it's very difficult to separate yourself from the noise, as it were. But key to that is also your focus on people over place. And I think that's something I'd love to chat about once we've gone through all the presentations. But I am obviously cognizant of time, so we'll jump over to Craig next. As I said, Craig's from So Community, a company he founded and runs, and he's had some really incredible projects that he's worked on in terms of internationals. I think Faroe Islands is one, New Orleans as well. So I'll let Craig take it away, and then we'll jump in after that.
Thanks, Rob. Hey, so I'm Craig. I'm a founder of So Community a while back. My background's a bit different. So I didn't come from a classic film or video or even photography background. I actually studied actuarial science and applied math, and I worked in banking and all that. So for me, it's been a very different approach for me. So the biggest problem I found with a lot of destinations when they try to market their destination, they group video into one sort of channel or one sort of thing. So when they discuss video, it's like we're discussing video now, and they're like, we need to make a video, and it doesn't go past that idea. So the last company I worked at before I started So Community was it was basically unsecured lending portfolio company, and you probably know them. You probably got mail packs asking you to take loans and stuff. You probably got SMSs. But the point is, it was a fine science where we'd know if we send mail packs to a certain person, they would respond on a certain rate. If we sent SMSs to another type of person, they would respond. If we made the card black, gold, or silver, we'd have a different response and a different profit from it. For me, video is exactly the same. Like, there's so many different formats of video. You've got different channels. You've got Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo. Like, you've got documentaries, you've got short reels, you've got TikToks. So for me, with any client, different channels have such different meanings, and they've got such different purposes. So the same person that logs on to YouTube, that logs onto Instagram, they're in a completely different mindset when they log on. When you log on to Instagram, you're looking for maybe short clips or short little videos or more images. When you log on to YouTube, you kind of want to watch a video. You want to learn something. It's like very informative. So the biggest weakness I found with a lot of destinations is they don't differentiate between the social platforms and the different types of people that follow them. And it even goes further than that. Like you can make an ad. So take the cycling example like that you guys just did, which was beautiful. Like you could make that video in 2 separate ways and you could put a different story. So if you wanted to get someone who was older, you could make the whole video around how it would be easy and how it's comfortable for people. For a younger person, you might show it's more tough. And you can actually now, like all these social platforms has given us such power to make sure the right people see the right types of video. So you can make sure that if you're trying to target Americans who are over 60 or retiring, you can make sure as soon as they get over 60 and they have a certain age of a certain other SEM market, they'll see that video, where another person will see a completely different video about the cycle route. So for me, like all the videos that we do, we put a lot of thought and effort into why are we making this video? What is the purpose of the video? And what are we going to get from the video? So I just want to share my screen now. Okay. So Community is my company. We basically specialize on, we like to think of ourselves as sort of digital storytellers. So we do a bit of everything. I mean, we like to think we can go somewhere for 5 days and come back with like 1,000 good pictures, like maybe a 5-minute video, a couple 1-minute videos. Like we try to do a lot of content, a lot of different types of content for different reasons. Generally, it's a small team, so we're not one of those. I mean, most of the younger like production companies now are small teams, and they go and they're very flexible. The older ones, they're going with a big crew. I mean, the first video we shot was for Huawei, and we shot a TV commercial on the phone, and with a team of 3 people. And that was a really big thing. In old days, TV commercials got shot with like 40 to 60 people. And like our budget came in at almost like a 10th of what a normal production company would charge. And just by having that real feel to it, you connect more with your audience on top of it. Okay, so here's some examples of different types of videos. This, I don't know if any of you have watched The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. It's basically about a Nat Geo type photographer. He develops pictures and he's never traveled. And anyway, he has to go find this negative in Iceland. But that movie alone bumped Iceland's tourism up by about 40%. Just that video. Like people saw that video and they needed to go to Iceland. Obviously, my octopus teacher, which I watched the other day, was really incredible. That just shows you how important story is. And that's an example of like almost a niche type of marketing. So each tourism agency has to decide what they want to do. You can't always approach everyone at the same time. You can't always meet everyone at the same time. Where videos like that might get people that love the ocean or into conservation or into the ocean. They'll come to South Africa because of that video. So that's a very specific type of video, but it's got a broader thing. Down to Earth with Zac Efron. Like I can't decide if I really like it or dislike it. There's things about it I love. There's things about it I dislike. But what I love, I mean, I've been to Iceland 2 times now, and when I watched the first Down to Earth when they go to Iceland, and they make that red in the sand, I was like, I need to go to Iceland and make that red in the sand. And that's the special thing about documentaries, because they show you things you would never have really thought about or considered. And I almost feel like our generation's forgotten how to travel. We're in the generation of let's go to Iceland and stand in front of a waterfall. And I believe videos and films can help people understand how to travel again. Like what decision process should you do to get here? Like all the best moments I've had in traveling are those random times you get lost. I mean, there's a lot of times you drive down a road and you find nothing, but there's other times where you find something. And like that Down to Earth, I felt Zac Efron was a bit like disconnected in the beginning, but the concept of the show was really good. The Make It Count Casey Neistat video. So he's probably known as one of the best digital storytellers in the world. Like he was going viral before social media. You go viral on pretty much emails. And he made this video, Make It Count for Nike. And the whole concept of the video, and up until the last Ronaldo video they did for Nike, was the most viewed Nike video ever. I think they had 30 million views on it. And it's actually very cool. It's filmed pretty much all on GoPros. It's not fancy filming at all. It's not bad filming, but it's not fancy. But the concept was Nike asked him to make a video and he just blew the whole budget. with his mate going around the world. And the whole video is about living life to its fullest. But it's just a very cool video, and it shows that you can there's different types of videos for different things. The bottom middle is one of my favorite DJs at the moment. I loved him in lockdown. His name's Ben Bomer. And he just released, just as lockdown came, like a sort of like ended around the world, they put him up in a hot air balloon in Turkey, and he played a live set. I mean, this video since got over 1 million views on it already. And like, it's one of those videos you don't have to like watch intensely, but it can be in the background. But when you watch it, you're like, I need to go to Turkey. So it's another example of a different type of video. The bottom right is a video I did for South African tourism a while back. We did this road trip from Joburg to Durban, and it was weird when we first got given the routes. Like, I was pretty bummed. Like, it was not the usual routes. Like, we had to go to the battlefields, and we had to go to all these random places, like in the Midlands. And like the first 2 or 3 days filming it was very intense because we had like 5 days to film, and each day was at a new place. We had bad weather, but you start building the story when you actually do the trip yourself, and you try to find interesting things to do, and the whole story comes together. And you can see as we start finding cool things and amazing things happen, we get to this Zulu village, and they do this full-on Zulu dance. It's like you can see the excitement in everyone's faces because the whole story is built up to that moment. Okay, so obviously you guys all know that video has the potential to drastically improve tourism. The main message I want to leave with you guys is like, think about what video you want to do. Do different types of video. Like, not all video will be applicable, but do reels, do documentaries. Like, invest in young creators that tell good stories. Like, guys that really appreciate. Like, it's weird. I've worked with a lot of clients where they like to spend all their money on one video. They'll spend like R1 million on one video. Like, instead of spending R1 million on one video, find like 10 oaks that will do like 10 different guys will do 100,000 rand videos, and they'll be more story intensive. So, and it will be real. Like, the problem is when you've got these big videos that are just, they get very one-dimensional because everything's planned. When you've got a smaller team, you're able to adapt and really experience destination. Okay, so I covered most of this stuff. Like, obviously you get different formats of videos. So other little things like technicalities are like, if you're putting a video on Instagram, put a portrait video. Like, don't put a landscape one. Don't post the same video to Instagram as YouTube. Like, do different cuts on it. Like, make interesting Instagram stories. Like, reels are really popular at the moment. It's like, all these social platforms are, I mean, I'm sure you guys have all watched The Social Dilemma. Like, all these platforms are fighting for your attention. So different platforms promote different areas. So obviously Instagram's trying to get rid of TikTok at the moment. So they're promoting reels. So if you put reels up, you're going to get massive engagement. And also reels are just really easy way to do, like, sometimes short videos also do well. Like, it's really nice. It's almost like the diminishing marginal return. So a video like that costs, say, R1 million might give you like 99 out of 100 value. Where a video that maybe costs 50,000 Rand might give you 70% value, but it only costs 50 grand. So it's about understanding what sort of media you want to put where. So the other thing I really want to discuss is the change in technology and the importance of people understanding what good content is. I learned photography and video off a cell phone. And like, the cell phones are so good at the moment. I can put up a picture on my Instagram and people won't even realize it was taken on my cell phone. Like, you can film. I still joke with the guy that works for me that I'll take a better video on my cell phone than you will with any camera setup. It's because a cell phone allows you to tell a story really well. And it's really important. I mean, it's also great to have the great gear, but it's what Sledgehammer spoke about is story, is you really want the story to come through. And when you sort of limit technology, you get the story coming through, but to a certain extent. So the importance of the people that run your social media to understand how to take good video clips, how to take good Instagram stories, how to just do the basics. You don't have to be, it's not rocket science. Just use a gimbal, do a stable shot. I feel like it's going to become more and more important that the different tourism agencies have people in the agency that are really just know the basics of video and pictures, to be honest. Okay, so this is one of my favorite videos I did. It was the Locals Guide to New Orleans. This video was cool because it was a combination of a tourism board, an airline, and a travel agency. And then obviously us. So New Orleans just got a new flight from British Airways from London to New Orleans, and we filmed pretty much an itinerary of what to do in New Orleans. And it's probably one of my favorite videos that I filmed, was because it's not my usual style. Normally it's adventure. This was more like going into a gritty city and experiencing food and culture and people. And this was a cool video because you can watch it if you're going to go to New Orleans, and you'll sort of get some value of things to do, and you'll get a vibe of what the city is going to be like. And the powerful thing about this video, it was shared between British Airways, New Orleans Tourism, and Secret Escape. So it's almost you doubling up on your exposure of a video. So the partnership between tourism boards and so I did another one with Nikon and tourism boards. We did Iceland with Nikon, did Morocco with Nikon, and we did a New York with Nikon. So basically, when you start adding in different brands that don't compete, you basically get to double the exposure. Okay, so basically, to break it all down into what to do, I mean, what's your why? What's your purpose? What is your purpose for this video? Why are you creating this video? What is your audience? What is your target audience? Are people around the world into yoga at the moment? Are they into conservation? What sort of video what do you want to attract? Like, I remember when I was in Faroe Islands, I went there the second time, and someone tried to shoot my drone out the sky with a shotgun. And like eventually, like the cops came, the guy came over, and it turned out there was this little village that 40 people live in. And they went from having almost no visitors to about, I think it was about 5,000 visitors a day. And people are running around on their lawns. And it's like tourism, like you mentioned with Table Mountain, you don't want everyone coming to the spots people go to already. You want to make videos and content that takes people to smaller restaurants, to little towns, to like maybe Greyton instead of Cape Town, or like just a little bit different to spread the love around with different industries, and do look at all the different things you can do, like adventure, food, all that stuff. Create videos that offer real value. Like when someone has watched your video, you want them to have got something from the video. They want to have learned something. They should have got a bit of value out of video. The niche content is like, okay, don't just make a video about sports. I mean, you can still do that, but maybe do about sports for pensioners, or you can do a video for female travelers, or a female traveler who's into running. It's rather, and even when it comes to ranking on YouTube, which is a whole nother discussion, is people, it's much easier to hit a target, a very specific target, than have a whole bunch. So, I mean, that's niche content, that's informative content, multiple styles of content. Be open to change, different styles, and invest in real content. Like invest in people that really care about content. I mean, that make good stories. And that's about it.
That's awesome. Thanks, Craig. And I'm glad you survived the Faroe Islands. It sounds like I got a little bit dodgy there. Yeah, you brought up some great points, and I love the fact that you brought up Walter Mitty. I think that movie kind of stirred the wanderlust in anybody who saw it, and it's a perfect example of how using something that's not necessarily designed to promote a destination, how it did just that. And my octopus teacher, I know, is kind of, and Monica will nod her head here, I'm sure it's trending in South Africa. I think every chat I'm on is talking about my octopus teacher. And it's a beautiful example of how something like a story between a man and an octopus promotes the destination to such a great degree. And it's the perfect example of how long form storytelling is starting to take over again. I think in all forms of content, but particularly in video. And it's something that we really need to consider when we filming these and we're considering how we're going to sell our brands. That long form is absolutely key to that. We'll come back to all of that a little bit later, but I'll hand over to Monica now to talk us through the film festivals and her own portfolio.
Thanks, Rob. Amazing presentations, guys. Yeah, so I'll be talking a little bit about a lot of stuff. Our portfolio as head of film and media promotion at Wesgro is vast. I have to say that, you know, we're here to promote the region and the creatives, and there's a huge value chain of film. And today I'm going to try to focus a little bit on film promoting your destination. And you'll notice a lot of the things that I say have already been brought up by the creative experts that have been curated ahead of me. I'm really glad I went last because now I can just jump to the fun stuff. Let me start this. There we go. So I'm going to use 3 international examples of film tourism, the classic ones. Middle Earth. When you land in New Zealand now, apparently there's a big sign there, welcome to Middle Earth. That was a learning curve by the national incentives team and the tourism team, who realized that when Lord of the Rings was shot there, the ad hoc run-on tourism was brilliant, but they couldn't use any of the IP in their advertising. And now you can see that the national body uses Middle Earth, but it's all the Hobbit stuff because the game, the Lord of the Rings, hadn't negotiated that right. And at a national level, the incentives were bumped up a little bit when they had that right to use some of the IP. And it was a brilliant strategy. It was a national strategy. And the other big thing that's happened since then is the Game of Thrones effect. And that was the first high-end, super high-end. They spend over $1 million US per episode. And it was a massive, massive uptick in what was possible in this golden age of content. And there's so many studies written about it, but the effect of driving tourism to Croatia, Spain, Iceland again, and Ireland is just unbelievable. And many people are designing small tours based on that, right through to, yeah, just people going there and on their own and discovering things and trying to see what's what. In the UK, for instance, the Downton Abbey is often used as a 1 in 4 people going to the UK has seen Downton Abbey and wants to see things that were in Downton Abbey, which is an amazing number. But let's stick to these 3 case studies. Chinese tourists did flock to Thailand after a hit small comedy independently produced film. And that's a 93% uptick, which was a huge uptick, and it's ongoing, and there's been sequels to that. So I'm going to stick to some of these big examples, and South Africa often is a favorite destination for shooting dance scenes, small sections of big films, dream sequences, and the stars are very generous with their fans and often post pictures of themselves. And there are whole fan sites where people trace where the stars are, what they're doing, and the films that are being shot. And these are massive Bollywood hits. Here in the Western Cape, I want to speak about easy wins. If you're shooting reality TV, like at Garden Route International Film Festival, they shot a lot of The Bachelors down there. Love Island is here in Cape Town. We have commercials being shot all over the show, and the Super Bowl wiener stampede, those little wiener dogs, brilliant commercial, makes you feel good. The story was brilliant. And then we have the memes like Jerusalem Challenge, and we were shooting one out at the Cape Town Film Studios, but that has driven the country onto everybody's front page. And we need to recognize that these are easy wins, and it does help us pull in the same direction. And then the 4th industrial revolution is also driving other wins like augmented reality apps. And it's funny, the first time when I was working at Wesgro, I re-met the Foster team behind My Octopus Teacher. They were just doing AR art photography type presentations and trying to get some idea of what might be their next steps. And I wanted the feature film, but they thought at the time, where's the story? And then they found that story, and what a brilliant project that was. And congratulations. And if you haven't watched it, watch My Octopus Teacher. These are some of the films and TV series, and this is the other big win, is that all these are out there. The IP is out there, and you can kind of start to lean in on these things. We have amazing soap operas, TVs, series. We have people coming here like the Bloodshot Vin Diesel. That's was shot in Cape Town but it was Cape Town for the dream flashbacks to a honeymoon period in Italy. But they shot that whole big feature here, and Tomb Raider was shot here, quite a lot of it on location. So all these properties have fan bases, and that's just something to talk about when you're designing your future look in and trying to lean in on what properties exist, where you're allowed to. Don't steal IP, but you can lean in on IP where possible. Raised by Wolves, it's just season 1 released, and a huge property shot in the Western Cape. And of course, My Octopus Teacher, and all of our beautiful animations and games. And gaming and edutainment is a big thing here. And I think the home of Kumba has always been close to my heart when I go up on Table Mountain and see that sign where the quachas that inspired the film used to live. They've now been moved to a better breeding site, but what a great story. And where you can find some of these stories, you can go into the Creative Locations book. We have a little key on each page, and you can see what's been shot, and you can maybe start to lean in on some of those pieces of properties just in congratulations. Oh, this commercial was so great. Or leaning in on guys who are winning and girls who are winning those big awards for their films, and celebrate that they were shot in your region. I'm going to end here because I want to talk a little bit in the panel discussion, and just to come back to My Octopus Teacher again, because it is massive, massive, massive project that developed slowly over time. And creatives are always looking for story, and we need to recognize that stories have different platforms and different eyeballs. You can have the best story in the world, but if nobody's watching it, that's a problem. And if nobody knows where it's from, that's also an issue. It's not a problem, it's an issue, because sometimes you have to shoot Cape Town for Italy, but we can, when appropriate, once the IP is out there, you can start to lean in. So while people are here and shooting, make them feel welcome and safe, and then later on try to lean in on the IP. I'm going to stop there because I really want to leave time for the discussion, but I did tell Rob that I would mention, have I stopped sharing? The share screen disappears from me. I hope I've stopped sharing, guys. Is that all right? Stop sharing? Okay. I just wanted to mention that there are ways that filmmakers get upskilled. And one way is to jump on these small projects when they come in. If you've put out a tender and you've got a small professional team come in, insist, it's your money, that they hire an intern from a local training institution, so they're coming in, or that they use local caterers. They're not bringing in their caterers, or if they have to bring in their caterers because it's a really big set, that they have shadow caterers from a local hotel school. It can be the whole purpose of tourism promotion is to create jobs across the value chain. And having a TV series that spends 37 million rand in hotels over the series is a beautiful cherry on top. But in truth, everybody's spending money all the time. We're buying petrol, we're going to the shops. If we're building a set, they're going to the local lumber shop. They're not going to bring that in from outside. So you want as much churn in your region as possible, but you also want that skills transfer locally. So those young creatives can start to look at what their possible next stories are going to be and how to sell them. And I think the advent of social media has been brilliant. There's been some real viral superstars coming from South Africa, not just the Jerusalem people, but We have comedians and storytellers that go from YouTube to SVOD and VOD and film festivals and full-on features. So this is a place to start to share, and people get discovered as well by the professionals that come in, and they get hired as an extra, and then suddenly they're building their own portfolio and they're becoming stars in their own right. So, and then those people are going to come back to their home because they want to celebrate their home and share the joy. And you know, we have Peter Dirk Uys, who just turned, I think, 75 this week. And Darling is on the map because he lives there. He has live theater, but he's also going around the world or having shows around the world. And he has a great portfolio of previous creative work. And there's those quality entrepreneurs that are out there, and they're selling this region for all of us. And we have to find a way to work together and pull in the same direction. And knowing that every piece of media that comes out there is possibly going to add to your story and attract people and share the love, as Craig said, get people to find those adventures. And even during the heavy lockdown, we were able to do virtual tours using Google. Rob, I think you were involved in that. That was amazing. We've been shooting the lights out. We raised money for local tour guides. That was using story and video, existing video, to tell stories and to track people for when we are open. And now we're open again. So I'm very excited that some of the work that you saw here today will bring people to experience the region, the safe, open regions that flowers are out, but also to speak to the film festivals. When you need to make a feature film, you need a lot of money. If feature documentary, you need a lot of money. You need to pre-sell. It can take 7-8 years for a feature documentary, from concept to shots to, you know, building up the edit. The edit is where it takes so long with a feature documentary. And feature films, post-production, CGI. We have the best post-production sound in this province and in South Africa, great talent, but it costs money. And we need to help talent when they're ready to go on the big screen, find that. And that's what Tony was going to talk about the Durban Film Art. And that's now an institute. So it's separated from the city, but while she was at the Durban Film Office, she raised money for micro funds just to get people churning, learning how to tell story and how to sell it, and bringing in partnership with Mzansi Magic at times or others, so that these small feeder funds could build a sort of portfolio of storytelling, so that eventually those young creatives could be ready for the next big project. And right now I've taken meetings with people who are looking for 2 South African directors for various huge episodes that are coming in. And I know they're going to find the talent here because we're creating that pipeline of talent through Durban Film Art, through all the festivals that we support, Garden Route International Film Festival and the Cape Town International Animation Festival. We know that the tourism festivals, as Rupert and Rory were mentioning, are helping to drive a cross-pollination of story and the zeitgeist of what is current to sell your region. And we're in those thought leader place. We might not go there with huge national bodies, but Wesgro's there, and young filmmakers like yourselves who get their films into those platforms because they're competitive, really help advertise the whole country and indeed the whole continent. But I'm going to stop there because I think Rob wants to get us all talking, and I can just lean in where needed. Cheers.
Thanks so much, Monica. And it's great that you mentioned, you know, the different kinds of films. I think we often get stuck on considering what a film is, and we don't look at film as a lot of different mediums. And as something Craig chatted about as well, these different types of social media that we have now, bringing in Google Maps, bringing in people who aren't necessarily, you know, comfortable in front of film, and using people like that, using tour guides who had probably never appeared in front of a camera before in that setting, and can now themselves have been upskilled in that way, and they now are more comfortable presenting, they're more comfortable with the medium, and that allows them a different way of promoting their own business. And I think it was fantastic that we managed to keep them going during lockdown to some degree, but beyond lockdown now, they have something else that they can use, and it's a new world to them, to you know, for lack of a better term. I'd like to kick off the conversation with all of you, and you can jump in where you feel free. I think maybe raise your hand if you want to jump in. You all spoke about story, and I think that's something that traditionally was missing from destination videos. I always, you know, I always coined the phrase, you know, the woman in a red dress dancing on a beach kind of video that didn't really separate the place. It could be anywhere in the world, and you'd only find out where that place was at the end of the video, or maybe some subtext that was run throughout the video. It was always a woman on a beach, a sandy white beach from the back. And in my mind, that doesn't give you much. Whereas now we're looking at films that are telling stories. They're telling stories of the place, and it brings in the people, and it definitely separates you from the noise. So I wonder if we can start with Ruben and Rory. How important is that story in selling your destination through film?
Well, critical, because it really gives you a granular insight to what makes that place so incredibly special. An example I can give you is a place called Heuningvlei. So everyone here, maybe a few of you know where Heuningvlei is, but it's one of Wuppertal's satellite villages. So to get there, it's like, you know, right in the heart of the Cederberg. You know, you can try capture the essence of the place through a drone shot and or, you know, a few stills, but you only get to understand the ethos of what makes Heuningvlei so special once you meet the people and get a sense of what makes that place so special. And they just had this most incredible generosity of spirit, which you are just not able to capture if you're not telling that story. If it's completely just a montage of Wuppertal, it's pretty, but you won't know where it is, right? But once you chat to the people and you just are able to gauge that generosity of spirit, it immediately makes it memorable, and immediately makes it a bucket list destination.
Yeah, and I think just kind of as an addendum to that, you know, obviously, so in that example, it's kind of like a documentary style, and the story is so important there, or integral. But it's in every single kind of format. I mean, you know, Craig was talking about all of these different mediums that film kind of finds its way in, and there's just this like human thing where we just have to have some kind of story that we can connect with. I mean, that's what like connecting with something is. It's a story, and any film in any medium without that kind of story, you know.
Also, I mean, the irony of the lady in the red dress on a beach is that is really expensive to pull off as well. Like, it's really not a cost-effective approach. You know, so awesome.
I thought
Just another reason, yeah, absolutely, another reason not to do the woman in a red dress then. Craig, you chatted about yeah, Nikon and you know, partnering brands with destination. I think that's an important thing to remember as well, because as Monica said, budget is always a huge issue. And I think for smaller brands or smaller destinations who don't necessarily have huge budget to throw at that, you know, the example of Nikon, and we did it to a smaller effect where we didn't have budget, we did have social media support from brands that were featured in our videos, kind of surreptitiously featured when we used, you know, Salomon athletes, or we used, you know, surfers who obviously had certain brand commitments that they wanted to get through as well. So is that something that you see in terms of international best practice, where these guys are partnering with bigger brands that can help subsidize in some way with budget, or at least help them with product or place, or, you know, kind of their network?
Yeah, I definitely see it's quite a big thing where brands are working together, because some brands just are like no-brainers. I mean, they don't compete. They're selling the same sort of lifestyle, and I mean, it is a bit hard sometimes because brands don't always play nicely together, but you do have brands that do work well together and they sort of have common people. So it's generally normally like a tourism board that would sort of facilitate something like that. So when I did that TV commercial for Huawei, it actually ended up linking up Huawei with South African tourism, because in the video, the whole concept of the video is that it was a new cell phone. It was very heavy on the camera, and the whole concept was just normal photographers traveling around South Africa, and the concept was you don't need to go like overseas to experience what you can get in South Africa. Like, you don't need to go to the Alps, you can go to the Drakensberg. And that was like, there's always like a really nice, the tourism board normally always like makes a really great link, specifically in what the stuff that I like to do. And obviously we're talking about tourism now. And generally tourism, they link different brands and they know they've got relationships with all the different brands and they're able to almost facilitate it, and it benefits everyone in the end.
And you also mentioned this is Director Craig again, New Orleans, British Airways, and it's not hammering a destination that people. It's not kind of going come here, come here, come here. So it's almost that kind of subconscious lure, isn't it? I mean, yes, we are obviously promoting the destination, but it's not a hard sell. It's something that you guys are using story to kind of lure people in. They want to experience that journey at some point themselves. And I think Rupert and Rory with Chasing Lions did that beautifully, is that, yes, it was telling a story about two people who went on a journey. But if anything, it kind of, people at the end of that video going, geez, I wouldn't mind going on that journey as well.
Yeah, I mean, like the best, I've always found the best type of marketing is just stuff that appeals outside of where you expect. So someone who's thinking about going to New Orleans or is looking on going on a holiday, or they Google something like where's a great place to go see jazz bar, and then they come across this video and they enjoy watching it. I mean, in the old days, if you think about how adverts worked, it's like you'd be watching a TV program and then you'd have to sit through adverts for like 3 minutes or 5, and like you'd be forced to do it or switch the TV off. Now there's an infinite amount of YouTube channels. There's an infinite amount of things. Like, no one really watches, they watch TV on demand, they watch internet on demand. So if you're just giving them just an ad, no one's going to watch it. Like, you want the person to watch that video and be like, wow, that was cool. And like to a certain level of like, hey, it's a film cool, the story is cool. Like I don't know about New Orleans, and so you really have to add value. And like, one of my favorite scenes in that video, in the New Orleans video, is we're just riding. So we'd walk for 4 days and we almost couldn't walk anymore. And on the last day, we went and hired some bicycles. And we hired bicycles and we'd shot the whole day and the sun was setting, and literally a whole bunch of about 200 bicycles with lights just drove past us. And they were doing this loop around with speakers and stuff. And that wasn't in the script at all, but we just followed them, and it was just a very real experience. So I had no idea that happened in New Orleans. So anyone who watches that video will be like, wow, I want to go see that bicycle thing in New Orleans. It'll be so cool to be part of it. So yeah, so that's a massive thing if you can add a lot of value to people.
I think that's an important point as well about organic story. And Rupert and Rory can certainly speak to this from experiences. I'm sure you can as well. But that idea that, yes, you have a story in mind when you start these things, but what we saw with Connected by Trail, for example, a very organic narrative started to come through from all these different athletes, although they came from different places and were speaking to different parts of the sport. Maybe they all managed to, unwittingly, they created their own organic narrative that ran through all 4 videos and into the greater story, which was about community in the local sport. So I think that's something important to remember as well, to the people watching this, is that you don't necessarily need to be fixed on what kind of story you want to tell. And these different elements pop up as you go. But I think, I just want to take it over to Monica in terms of, obviously it's important to have story and it's important to have these beautiful videos. But the key takeaway from you is that you need people to watch them. So how important is that, festival circuit, those tourism festivals, film festivals even, that aren't necessarily purely tourism related, to get eyes on that product or that film?
Yeah, it's a great question. And eyeballs are it, it's the war of the streamers right now. We sometimes have to wait second or third window if it's an international streamer that's shot here. But I'm a fan, and I know they're here, like Raised by Wolves. It's HBO Max, and we're going to see that at a second or third window, and that's fine. I'll wait. But I'm not sure if the world, unless you're a super Ridley Scott fan, will know that it was shot in Cape Town, and that's fine too. You just got to accept that. But while those stars were here, and like Game of Thrones, they killed off the A-list stars. You ended up with people who were just very good actors, who then became stars in their own right. And so these high-end TV are building audiences, and that's where we are right now in terms of high-end TV. And we all know Netflix wants more content because it's a huge appetite. We're in that golden age. But how do you do it? There's a sort of normal way that you do it. You do it very early in the process. If it's a documentary, you're talking to the documentary AAA broadcast looking for a pre-buy or a license or an outright sale. There's a huge value chain for that. If it's a tourism, and it's a lucky dip. If you've got a documentary at the quality of Sea Changes, My Octopus Teacher, you're going to hit it out of the park. 117 million eyeballs at the moment on that channel. And then you also get people spoofing it, which adds more eyeballs to what are they talking about? You want to be in that FOMO. You want to connect to that content even more. And everybody laughs because they all cried ugly tears at one point, or they watch somebody else crying an ugly tear, or hearing about the ugly, because there's this moment where you all cry or most people cry. And so, but something that's missing in a way from this discussion is the power of film to market the destination across all of the content creation, and that's the edutainment. So let's say you're running a fun public broadcasting message, about garbage. You could be doing it in a way that advertises your region in a nice way, like we're the best recyclers, or the water one, which is my favorite. And Rob, I'm going to throw it back at you. You did those surf videos, surf guys who did the water wise stuff, and it was just viral. And the safety message in Australia, how many ways to die, to stop people from crossing railway tracks, because Australia, or drinking and driving. And there were like all many ways to die. And it was the most amazing viral animation. And you only think of Australia when you think of that video. And now that the song is in my head. So, having an earworm helps, great sound helps. So maybe that's something I just want to throw back at you is edutainment. Everything you do, you can think place marketing. You can drive it across even your books, think beauty, think legacy. Try to have really, really beautiful projects that last, that live, because they'll all live online. And if you can, share that in as much as you can, lean in with each other to share good content. And I know, Rob, you were going to put some of the links, because Zoom doesn't let us play some of these things. We're going to put it out afterwards, where in the YouTube channel, some of the things that these guys chatted about, so that people can go to the YouTube and click on what they've done. I mean, these guys are premium, even though they go with small teams, their ideas are premium. And you can do that in everything you do. That's what I'm trying to say, is everything you do, think, sell in a good way, and did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's I'll just quickly touch on the surf video that you mentioned. And it's a great point in that you can use any situation to sell your destination in a positive light. And those surf videos came about, from the drought. And, what could have been, and it was obviously for us in the Western Cape, it wasn't a great time, but we took a situation that could have just, you know, been the death knell for tourism and turned into something positive. And I think it's also important to remember that every destination has somebody who is looking to help promote it. And when I say that, I mean, you know, we always look at celebrities and go, geez, you know, we're not going to be able to afford these guys. How could we possibly get them into our video? How could we, you know, get them to represent our brand? But what you find is often local celebrities are so passionate about their province or their town or wherever it may be, that they are, you know, chomping at the bit to actually get involved. And it was the same with Connected by Trail. We have, you know, world-class athletes who will pretty much drop everything to appear in these videos and to appear in these films. And I think it's something that you need to really leverage, is that love of place. And you know, we talk about character, we talk about people, and I'll hand this over to Ruben and Rory now. But you know, the fact that, you know, we're promoting a destination, you know, there's so much noise out there. We want people to talk about it, and nobody knows a place better than the people who live there. And you know, you really need to leverage those celebrities, or, you know, I hate the term celebrity, but high profile people, let's put it like that, well-traveled people who can take your message with them. I guess, Ruben, Rory, if maybe you could chat about this a little bit more, but, you know, in your experience, you know, how the uptake from these kinds of guys, and, you know, I'll bring Ryan Sands, Geordie Smith, guys like this, how quickly they kind of open their homes to you guys to help promote these places.
Yeah, yeah, I think it is, and like you say, you know, specifically where you can kind of jump on this shared thing where it's like, okay, you know, this is, so for the Ryan Sands example, you know, this is we're talking about the Cape trail running community, you know, and it's something that's just, it's like a shared thing that, okay, we're all keen to explore this thing. And I mean, you know, they are already ambassadors of the community, and, you know, just passionate about it. And I mean, in a way, it's often you meet these people, it's like with Peter Slingsby, with you find that you find them because you're interested and curious about, you know, them and like the thing they're doing. But I mean, very quickly, their sort of like deep pool of passion for the thing like completely engulfs like your small kind of curiosity that you first, you know, and you suddenly find yourself in this, like, they open up this whole world of experience and like deeper things and threads that you can kind of pull on when you're trying to find the narrative. But yeah, absolutely, they are your biggest kind of way to reach like-minded people that care about these things, you know, because they're already, you know, they're already selling all of it, you know, all you're doing is kind of telling that story and then letting them run with it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, in essence, you are just partnering with a brand Ryan Sands or brand Geordie Smith or brand Nikon, whatever, and you're just bringing their community on board, right? But what's interesting about travel and tourism film is that it's not just the big guys that open up their schedules and, you know, let us tell them to run up and down mountains so we get the right shots. It's also the local heroes. I mean, like, think Tanny Poppy, you know, she cooks roosterbrood on the side of the N1, but she was just so stoked to have us there. Or think random surfer Farmer Burger up the West Coast, who loves the West Coast. He's a celebrity there in his own right, but he gave up a whole day of his time because he wants to promote his area, because he loves it, you know? So it's not just the big guys, everyone. If you just ask anyone if they would love to promote their place,
yeah,
you know, odds are they will. They'll give you the time and they'll give you the passion.
I mean, yeah, just an interesting kind of anecdote, I guess, with Chasing Lions, you know, when we kind of, everything was said and done and we were like, okay, you know, what can we kind of do from our side to just get more people to see the damn thing, you know, because like we stoked with this thing and like, can we get as many eyes as possible? And one of the, like, this crazy kind of organic conversions came from a Facebook group. What was it? The
Mountain Passes South Africa.
Mountain Passes South Africa, because they saw the Swartberg Pass was in there and they loved the Swartberg Pass. So then, you know, they went out and shared it with like
30,000 people.
yeah, you know, and they couldn't get enough of it, you know. So yeah, I mean, I think you can really just tap into, you know, as long as your film has some, and I mean, that is like a tiny part of the film, you know, but just brought that whole community onto it. So yeah, I think there's so much to be said for that kind of thing. Yeah.
And Craig, you know, talking about community and a lot of I mean, look, Craig shares films with me often. You know, I think everyone's so passionate about this kind of stuff and the content. You know, Craig will hit me up with a message on WhatsApp with his latest video, and it's just like, it might not even be for a brand. It's just a passion project, and I think that in itself is a way of promoting the destination, isn't it, Craig? I mean, you speaking to communities. You know, it might be a community that you're passionate about. It might be a mate of yours or somebody you've networked with in the past. And, you know, these stories are being told beautifully, but the throwaway is always, it doesn't have to be a massive production to promote the destination. It could be as simple as, you know, a young gun skateboarding through the city center at night and kind of promoting that kind of lifestyle, you know, that cityscape or that beautiful urban kind of environment.
Yeah, so it's an interesting trade-off. Like, some of my favorite videos I make aren't sponsored or aren't for brands, because you got a lot more freedom to, like, for instance, like if we go up the West Coast on a surf trip and like we pop open a beer on top of a car roof while it's moving, like, you can't put that in a tourism video, but like you can do it in our own video. Like, there's much more freedom to what you want to do. I mean, you obviously got to, and I don't know, the hope is, like, I genuinely love traveling and I love capturing that moment and the travel around it. So like, for me, if I was there working, not working, I'd still want to film it or take pictures. It's just, I love doing it. But the dream is, if you make enough of those type of videos, brands and travel agents, like I actually want to do a series called How to Travel. And the concept is, before people actually buy into it, you actually have to make the videos. And then once you've shown that you can do it and people see and they trust your content that you make, they'll be open to maybe letting you do your own video. Like the Faroe Islands, that was one of my favorite videos we did, because we got there and they just booked our accommodation, gave us a car, and we told them what we were going to do, and we didn't have to do anything else. They're like, you trust whatever you're going to do, you got 6 days here to make a video. Where other places you go, like when we did New Orleans, it was like, there were certain streets we weren't allowed to film, there were certain things we weren't allowed to film, and like, it's weird, like, as much as I love that video, it's also, I didn't feel like it was authentic to my New Orleans. But then you also got to respect that that's what the brand wanted, and was for an older audience, mainly in London. So yeah, I like the fact when you're free to do what you want, and like every now and again, like, you get, the video does well, or like someone sees it. I mean, one of the videos I did for free, well, it was like, I didn't make any money from it, got me this trail running thing with the American brand. So like, I like investing in it and I enjoy doing it. And I mean, it's just a passion, really.
Monica, if I can throw it over to you, and it's something I've, you know, kind of, you know, obviously as the content guy at Wesgro, I come into contact with a lot of young guys who are trying to get into the industry. They can't for a number of reasons, but one of that is, from my mind, not really understanding how to. So I know that part of your role is, you know, to allow them to understand this and to navigate, or help them navigate these kinds of things. Could you just give me some, you know, insight from your side into what young filmmakers who may not have the experience or may not have the financial backing, how they can go about getting into this industry, and not necessarily just for tourism, but for anything. And I think, again, it's, you know, for a young guy who's getting started, he might not know exactly where to go. I mean, is that something that you would be able to help with in some way?
Yeah, that's a great question. Wesgro does partner with the festivals to do upskillings. So having masters in the room who've got a huge portfolio already, and speaking to their experience, like Craig said, I just do it for love, and then suddenly I get a client. those are really good experiences for people to hear, because you got to love this business. You're going to be pitching. And I can remember in Wavescape, which is another great festival taking place here in the region and across the country. Wavescape was, I think, the first surf film festival, and it's one of the largest still in the world, just curating surf content. But now they're also doing adventure stuff, because there's just such a crossover. A surfer is going to cycle or skateboard, and they used to partner with different brands to do little inserts. So pitch to get it, get your inserts into those competitions. And there's so much out there that you could be applying for as a small concept and build up that portfolio. Other ways to do it is to attend or try to get into things like Talents in Berlin, or Talents in Durban, which is the Africa platform. But to do that, you have to have shot some kind of a film, and there's no excuse now. You've all got a cell phone. You've got to have something to show that you can tell a story visually, and build up your brand, build up your Instagram, or if it's TikTok, or if it's Snapchat. I met a Snapchat at one of the Wavescapes masterclasses where we had people like Craig and Rupert and Rory talking. And he was like, yeah, I was in Blue Crush 2 or whatever the film was, and they really liked him. Plus he did this Snapchat stuff back then, but because there were stars there that started following him, he blew up. And his whole thing was, I do Snapchat, that's me, and I brand place and whatever. It was like completely new to me, this, because there's so many media platforms that come, but when you become really good at that and competitive globally, there's money in it, and in a good way. We want, there's a question in the sidebar about becoming film ready destination. And there's a backstory there about regulation and being on brand. Craig was told not to film certain streets because it didn't align with the brand. There's also a problem that if you're selling your video, you have to know the regulations so that you can actually own that content, have chain of title. So those are the kinds of conversations that we host with top people. We have a 2-hour, a 2x2-hour webinar on legal processes and how to create content and own it and sell it, and on and on and on. It's a huge business. You're setting up a factory, you're creating something, and then you're selling it. And you're selling it across multiple platforms. Vertical channels exist. What is a vertical channel? That's that portrait versus, your phone is vertical. It's amazing. And all of these things need content. And if you're a young entrepreneur, you want to get into these places, you got to figure it out yourself, first of all, but you also have to come. Encounters Documentary Film Festival just had, like, I don't know how many master classes, well attended, from people doing huge documentaries like Influence, How to Sell a Country, and that was a project that got started, I think, in Durban Film Mart, went to Sundance, it got workshopped, and it needed a lot of money because they had to fly some of the directors to Europe to do some of the shooting. They had to be in the edit for a long time. And, when you're doing a budget for a documentary, it's a huge thing. And we need to help young filmmakers. We have a workshop next week here at the Garden Route Film Festival on associations, meet the associations. People should be joining associations, Documentary Filmmaker Association, Commercial Producers Association, the South African Association of Stills Producers, sisters working in film and television, because women, it's been a very patriarchal business. So, they're building a little bubble to also push for best practice, because we have to develop respect, and the old ways aren't working. We have to move quicker. And that's the nice thing about story, is we can cut through a lot of history very quickly. And it's the young people that need to find a place to build that voice and get it out there and make it a sustainable business. So Wesgro is here to help with those mentoring, brainstorming sessions, going to business strategizer, doing a strategizer on your business, looking at, some people were able to pivot in COVID because they had a number of divisions active. They were in development here, they were in post there, they were in branded content there. And these things could pivot. Some of them could pivot and some of them couldn't. You know, we were shut down from shooting for a few months, but very quickly it came back on once everybody realized you could shoot safely. And those associations helped hammer out and negotiate with national government what was safe going forward. So even now, I asked Rob Rupert and Rory, where are your masks? Are you in a bubble together? And they are. So I was happy there, because I want to be showing people that we do have masks mostly when we're working together. And this is just it. We need to work safely and we need to shut down the cowboys. So that's the regulation thing. Coming back to that question, we did have a film readiness session last week, and we'll have more of those. And we're happy to take those kinds of questions offline as well, Rob.
Brilliant. Thanks, Monica. And you raise a good point, which Craig actually in his presentation spoke to, is all these different kinds of mediums. And I think as any content creator needs to have a little bit of hustle about him as well, or about herself, is that you do need to know when these things are coming up and what you can get involved in quickly. And it can often, snowball into something, much bigger. So I think we've always kind of been stuck. And, I started working with the guys, 6-7 years ago, more in filming. My background is editorial, and, seeing how film has grown, but seeing how easy it has become for people to be filming things and to be working in these kinds of things. And I wonder, Craig, I think your background in social media and, growing your kind of profile there and then moving into film, maybe more traditionally, I mean, is that something that maybe people should start considering, is stepping away from this idea of always being a massive film production to get involved? You don't have to have huge budget to get involved.
Yeah, there's a certain type of hustle that you get from different people. Yeah, it is hard, but like for me, I worked pretty much every day from 7 till 6, and pretty much for about 3 years straight, I'll go take pictures after work, just on my cell phone. Before I earned any money from Instagram, like every single day, I would go anywhere from Cape Point to Chatham. Like I'd rock up home at 10 o'clock at night, and I did it without knowing I was going to have this career. I just did it because I love doing it. And like, it's very hard when you meet a lot of young guys and they say they want to do it, but then they can't show you one film that they've shot. I don't care if the film's bad or whatever, but I can see straight away when I meet someone, they show me is real. Like I can see, like certain guys, you can see that they've got the shots and they got no passion. Other guys, you can see, okay, they know they need this shot. They didn't execute it well, but you can see that they needed it. But they tried to do something, and like you can teach that. And it's very hard with the young guys. Like it's like people evolving so fast, and it's hard when they, like, I think of the guys studying photography now. When I started, we were just comparing to other guys taking pictures on our cell phones, and we sort of evolved together. Some guys more than others, but like now it's quite hard. And younger people also get caught in trends. Like they'll see someone like a Sam Polder, like creating these videos that are like very heavy on editing and After Effects, and then they want to do that, and they don't want to break out of their role. It's also being in like a professional, not a professional, like in finance versus creative. It's a very different mindset, and creatives don't like when you don't like their ideas. They like where in banking, if you come up with a bad idea, your boss is like, that's a terrible idea, we're not doing it. Where a creative, like, he's going to sulk for a couple of days, and he's still going to probably do it. So it's a different mindset. But just to go back, just quickly, when you mentioned supporting young creatives, I almost feel like, I know not all tourism departments have a lot of money, but like, I've seen a lot of guys, and probably like Sledgehammer, probably in the same scenario as me, and probably like my brother who also does a lot of like films, and we're not massive operations. I mean, we range from probably like 3 to 6 people working for us, but like, we're not masters at pitching to someone like Netflix. So if Wesgro or anyone else is able to help guys like our companies pitch to those guys to film documentaries, that will allow us to like hire young creatives. Like if I had more work on a big documentary, you're able to hire someone as a young creative, or even like if a company like Wesgro like subsidize a young person at a creative agency, because like Wesgro is amazing, they do a lot of things, but a young video guy would probably learn more at a Sledgehammer or a Soak community than he would at Wesgro, because he would work on a variety of different things. So it's like helping the sort of the medium-sized or smallish companies get the bigger documentary jobs, like make that feature film. Like maybe they're not financially supporting it, but they're just helping you get the meeting, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah, Monica, I guess that's something you could come in on, and I think you did mention that maybe not subsidizing, that's not really, what Wesgro necessarily does, but you can certainly act as a go-between, I guess, to kind of introduce people into that world.
Well, big documentaries are big, and they take pitching, and the pitches have to be pitch ready in a nice way. So Durban Film Art, which Tony would have talked about, is one of the big feeders to global cinematic documentaries. And not everybody has to go that route. They already have partners with sales agents or distribution companies. Like, I think the route that My Octopus Teacher took a slightly different, because they had 2 or 3 world-class festival projects behind them. So they went a different route. But let's say you're just starting out, and a company from Cape Town did win, I think, 5 prizes at Durban Film Art. So if you have a project that's pitch ready and you want to get it in front of people, it really has to be pitch ready, meeting ready. And to do that, most people go through MARTs, whether it's Durban Film Art, whether it's the International Documentary Festival of Amsterdam, which is one of the partners, whether it's a Sundance. The reason that you want to go into a MART, it's like a hothouse. You get a lot of eyeballs on your project. And Craig, yeah, people give notes and you don't want to listen to them. You can go and sulk, or you can listen to it and go somewhere else for the money. But if you're going with a broadcaster, you want to get there early enough so they can feed in and say, actually, my channel needs a bit more character. Is there somebody there that has more character? That character over there is working for my channel. Can you edit that in more? And it's just, when you listen to the pitches, and now they're online and recorded, you can actually see what people are listening to and thinking of. But to answer that question, it's really difficult. You get a meeting with somebody. Netflix was one of the sponsors at Durban Film Art. They had 2 senior executives there. They tend to use aggregators who are out here looking. I know I've had people requesting from National, can you give us this kind of company to feed to a streamer? And so they're looking, but they tend to look bigger, or they go where there's projects pitched ready, or they're just out here quietly looking. So maybe they just heard you, Craig, and maybe they'll find you. I don't know it. But the problem is to recognize that the decision is based on what you've done and the package that you're giving to them. And it's not all about the money. It really is about, thinking out of the box, having that authentic voice, having something new, and branded content. There was a session yesterday from Mnet, and branded content, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be fiction. It could be music videos. There's all kinds of things that Mnet is looking for to drive across its channels. It's got a new, and that's now online, that where you can look for money for, but then you're in a partnership with a broadcaster here. And there's, is it a commission or is it a co-pro? And you have to actually start looking at the package and what rights you want to keep for yourself, or do you just want to work for hire? And, in the end, there's so many things to think about, but the earlier you think about the eyeballs, the better it's going to be, because then you're going to have better meetings, especially when you're working with the streamers, because they have very clear ideas of what they want, which is new, authentic stuff. And, I think having a documentary on Netflix at the level of My Octopus Teacher and The Social Dilemma at the same time, it just shows how wide this content curve is, because one is about purpose, connection, and life, and one is about, are we being divided? Are we collapsing as a civilization? And the story between them is everything in between. I mean, we're just so blessed that there's so many ways to hear stories that might show us where we have a blind spot in us, or give us hope, you know, the opposite. So Craig, we would take that meeting offline, but I don't have a direct line. What I would do is help you find those moments and make sure you're as ready as possible for your pitch.
Yeah, so it's more just a general thing for younger, but like smaller businesses, like the under 10 sort of employees that are doing this. I mean, obviously we all work in travel, we all had lockdown and COVID. Like, it's like, I'm lucky I've come from a bit of a business background, but I do, from a lot of the creatives I've worked with, they don't have that business knowledge, and they wouldn't even know that their channels exist. And it's like, it's finding a way to help those mid-level guys to take their business a little bit further, and then that will give a whole bunch more opportunities to the younger people. So I don't know if it's a bit more training, or if like it's like almost helping people get into the next level, like just being aware of what you need to be aware of, if you know what I mean.
I think
so. That is, Craig, that is something, sorry Rob, I'm just jumping in, that we do. And again, we do a lot of these online things. We do run you know, even production finance, which we've seen a lot of people struggling with in partnership with people that like Moneypenny, who come in and just basically help people who are maybe financially trained as bookkeepers but want to move up. But business skills, we have export development program that then has a second level. So you learn as a business how to export, and you guys are exporting services, and then you move into maybe getting a mentor, and some companies have gone through that whole process, and the mentors have adopted them, and they've had shared properties that move through in the media side. Those are by application. You have to apply, and you have to have so many employees to get into that, because if you're just servicing 1 or 2 people, it's not enough. I think you need about 6 or 10 people. But we also connect with agencies across the board that do offer services, and we help people connect just to the National Film and Video Foundation, who are doing amazing training and have development funds to get those projects ready. And you know, there are marks globally all the time to, you know, like Digital Lab Africa. There's areas that you can feed into as story on a napkin that could get you the next project funded for development. So you're doing all this corporate work, but you want this idea. And literally some of our guys have gotten into huge like sabbaticals to develop a project. You know, you based in a castle in France for a month. You know what, how nice is that? But at the end of it, you got something then to develop that division of your company further. So you have to be ready for these things, and you have to, you know, give yourself half a morning a week to read all of the pitches that are open, put it in your calendar and planning. We can help you look at that.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, Craig, it's also things like this even. I mean, you know, all the information you guys will pick up from Monica just on this webinar. And, you know, my experience is also, and working with, you know, I've worked with all of you on this group now, but the one thing that generally sets creatives apart to kind of go to that next level is being willing to actually go to that level, and be willing to learn, and be willing to ask the questions, and be willing to get their foot in the door. So I think it's very important to remember that you can be incredibly talented, but if you're not going to apply that in some way, you're not going to get in the room. And, you know, you mentioned how you got started, and I know Rory and Rupert have a similar story in that they didn't set out to be filmmakers, and they've got an incredibly funny anecdote about how they got started. We don't need to go into that now, but I think, you know, I'll throw it to them as well. You know, to make it as a filmmaker, especially in a place like Cape Town, you do need to want to, and you know this as well, Craig, having done it yourself, you need to be willing to go that extra mile and to learn, and also importantly to collaborate. And I want to chat to Rory and Ruben in particular about this, because having worked them, in terms of collaboration, how important is it for the destination brand to understand when to kind of let go of their preconceived notion of what they want to sell and let you guys come in and say, well, this is possibly a better way to do it?
Hey, Rob.
Asking the tough question.
Awesome. I think it all comes down to brief. So I think at one level, creatives need to learn how to interpret briefs better. And at another level, brands and maybe tourism bodies need to learn how to kind of communicate their brief better. And it all happens, the marriage happens in the pre-production, where you and your client are communicating and fleshing out the story. So everyone needs to be on the same page before a single frame gets filmed, a single photo gets taken, anything gets done, is that there's like a creative middle ground where both the creatives have given their, kind of vision and taken on board the client or the tourism body's needs, wants, necessities. Because at the end of the day, the client understands their target market best. However, the film production guys understand the storytelling the best. So the magic happens somewhere in the middle when there's a beautiful harmony between all those things.
Yeah, I think it, like, you can really, I mean, from one sort of project to another, when all parties are kind of bought into the idea and amped about it, I mean, it's just a whole different thing to when, and I mean, it happens, like you get, you might get, you're not on the same page for whatever reason, or somebody wants to create something because, their boss told them to, or you know what I mean? And there's no kind of there's no real buy-in or passion. And I mean, it's like a real slog. But I think really importantly, there's I don't know how to say this, there's a need for creatives to be able to interpret a client's wants and need, as Ruben said, and also realize that that feedback is really important. So I mean, you might have a client, for example, say, oh, I don't like this, right? I don't like this, it's too red, or a stupid example, but you really need to just kind of learn to interrogate, okay, wait, why don't you like it? And there's a reason there, and that reason is often relevant, and I think there's a kind of, certainly we've learned some hard lessons from when we kind of first started out. It's oh yes, okay, anything you say, we'll do whatever you want to please you, and you end up with this completely butchered project that is a shadow of what it kind of was in the beginning, to more of an approach where it's okay, let's agree to, we'll give each other the space and freedom to be able to say, if it's going to move the project forward, let's do it, and if it's not, let's talk about it and not do it.
Yeah, Craig, you've obviously worked on a fair amount of international destinations as well, or DMOs or brand marketers or hotel groups. Have you picked up any kind of best practice? I mean, Iceland always comes up, and it's unbelievable. From Walter Mitty to their quirky destination videos with weird and wonderful dances, and phone Iceland and things like that. I've always kind of seen them as the guys who take something very unique and create their own persona around it. But have you picked up anything in terms of best practice on the international brands that you've worked on that maybe we should be looking at not necessarily copying, but at least kind of finding our own kind of version of that.
Rob, to speak quite bluntly, like there's a massive difference in skill level between, and like it's like not like dots like shining like sun up on wherever I'm supposed to, but like dealing with you understand story. Like when you and I work together, you fundamentally get it. And like story is something that goes, like stories in writing, it's in pictures, it's in video. Like you don't need to know how to film to understand story. A lot of the South African brands you work with, there's someone that's just been, they've just got sort of like a random person that did marketing is now doing their content, and they don't fundamentally understand the content or story. Like when I work with American brands or big international brands, when I did a job for Danone, like they had a full-on creative director that had been in the field for ages, and when they don't like something, they're able to, they give you very relevant feedback. Like there's nothing worse than when someone tries to tell you to change something in a video, but they don't understand you can't just change that. And like in their mind, it needs to be done, but they fundamentally don't understand what it's going to do to the video. Whereas international brands, they're a lot more, and they're much less emotional, and everyone sort of trusts you that you're there for a reason. They'll be like, no, we like this, but we feel like we need this, and it's very good feedback, and it makes the process a lot better. Where in South Africa, I don't know, I feel like because we're a bit like a couple of years behind. Like I know a lot of the guys in America who are making a lot of money. It's a big industry in America. Where in South Africa, it's sort of a box tick to do social media and content. And like now, it's like you got these guys that are holding on to their social media, and they don't want to change, and they got their own style that they don't, even if it's not right. So I don't know. I think we'll definitely catch up. I mean, there's going to be so many more roles. I mean, especially with what COVID's done, it's like sort of condensed this whole process. I mean, I can imagine everyone who has a business now pretty much has to be online and be creating content all the time. So people are going to realize, I mean, I've worked with like across a variety of brands, and all the online brands that have been doing stuff and have got good content managers and good like social media managers and strategists, they've done really well. Their sales gone up like 4 or 5 times. The guys that haven't are borderline going out of business. So I feel like as soon as the skill level gets better, but it's one of those things that sometimes it's one of those things where you just need to know what you don't know sometimes. So I work with other guys that they might not have the skills, but they're aware where they've got skills and where they don't have skills. So you can have a good conversation with them, and they'll be like, okay, cool, I don't understand this, but I do know this. And you can have a proper conversation there. For me, it's also a lot of young creatives. Also, it's the same thing. Guys don't like going along the process the whole way. Like as soon as I get a first rough draft, I like to send it to someone straight away and chat to them. Like, what do you like? There's nothing worse than like going a couple of weeks down into an edit, and then the guy's like, no, we like hate the concept. I mean, it doesn't often happen, but it has happened once or twice. But I'd rather like send it as soon as you got a rough draft. It's like, do you like the vibe? I mean, we haven't color graded. We don't know if you like the song. There's 1 or 2 shots missing, but do you like the general vibe? And it's like, yes, carry on. And it's more being open to being wrong. Like no one gets it perfect. And I feel like the biggest limitation to creatives is they feel like everything has to be perfect. And sometimes you just need to like be open with the conversation. Like, be wrong, but rather catch it early and get on the right track.
It's a great point, and it speaks to what Monica was saying about eyeballs. And it's, I think what's important about these kinds of conversations as well is understanding that yes, you can have a great video, and yes, you can have a great creative team you're working with, but you do need a team in-house who can work with those guys and who can really kind of carry it through. And you talk about content managers, you talk about social media managers, and I think it's important to understand the difference between the two. A content manager isn't necessarily a social media manager. And I think what I've come across in my career as well is that people are wearing a lot of hats, whether it be in-house or a creative coming in. When you're working with a creative studio, you do need people who can understand what they're going to be getting back, and to be able to talk to that and not necessarily be, like you said, I don't like that, I don't like the way it looks, or I don't like the way it sounds, or I don't understand it. Understanding where music players are all now, Rupert and Rory and I've had long chats about, you know, the music that runs through something, and then somebody else will come in and go, well, I don't like that music. It doesn't sound nice, but they're not understanding the flow of the music through the film. So I think it's all very relevant and all very good points made. I'm not sure if, you know, you guys want to weigh in on anything else in terms of, you know, working with, because this is very much aimed at destinations and how they can use videos. If there's any advice you can give to a destination manager on how they can, you know, look at getting film out. Rupert's got his hand up, so I'll let him jump in.
I'm just jumping on your points with regards to kind of global leaders in the space. So obviously Icelandic tourism, their stuff is just legendary, right? They've got this like awesome, hilarious persona that they build into all their videos. But just for the attendees, maybe look at Madrid tourism. Madrid tourism's work around their gay pride parade is just awesome. It's like they've taken this really, really incredible event, but each year they've got like a really seminal video that just is better and better and better. And they've, yeah, so check Madrid tourism out, check Catalonia tourism out, and then the city of Riga also do incredible stuff. And the more you can watch, you know, the more you can inform whoever's making your filmic destination content about what you like, about how your destination could step out the box. So once you start watching, say now Madrid tourism's gay pride stuff, you realize all the best, most memorable films, destination films, are outside the box. It's just these really unique little stories that are so memorable. Once you just kind of jump into what makes that place, that experience, that event so unique, you know?
Yeah, and I think just like seeing the voices that these regions have developed, like as kind of like tourism bodies and whatever, and like like the voice of that city or that, you know, place or whatever, it's just helpful, especially if you're trying to figure out like, okay, what is my region's voice, and like where can we, you know, maybe, and I mean maybe it's different this year to next year or whatever, but like, you know, what can we really kind of you know, where can we position ourselves on this kind of global stage? I think, yeah, I mean, just seeing what's out there is like super helpful, and yeah, awesome.
Rob, so like what a really good trip was the one we did with Wesgro to Tilburg, and like for me, like that was a really good experience, because the best thing a tourism agency can do is when they pull all the little places around, like the different, I mean, Tilburg has obviously got wine, it's got chocolates, it's got olive, I mean, you pull those people in, the guys that really bring people to the area, and you make a video and you get them all working together, whether like maybe a wine farm can't afford a big video, but maybe they can afford a portion of a video for the region. So it's like these meetings, and the Wesgro is really good with that. I mean, you're always meeting the different guys, having the educationals and stuff like that. I mean, I actually got really nice stuff because it was a very authentic experience. I mean, we weren't there to shoot a video, but we did all the things that a normal person would do if they were experiencing it. And when you have those meetings and you have these educationals and you get filmmakers there, you will get really good stuff. I mean, it might not be a polished film where you've got everything set up, but you'll get a very real experience. And the best thing about those experiences, the people that attend it are generally very curious. Like the different area people or managers, I don't know what the word is, but for instance, if someone from Wesgro went to Tilburg, they would ask very cool questions because they're generally interested in the area. So you get a really nice interaction and it's authentic. And when people ask good questions, you get good responses. And I mean, you guys said it as well earlier, there's nothing better than when someone says something in a video and it's not scripted. And I feel like the more tourism places pull together and realize that they're not trying to compete against each other. Like if an area grows, everyone benefits. And I feel like that's the best way for tourism to grow. And I think that's what Iceland does so well. I mean, like I know when I went to Iceland, like they didn't want stuff done in the south of Iceland. They wanted stuff done in the north, and they didn't want people with all the waterfalls. They wanted people to see the culture. So they wanted more food stuff. So it's very important to balance it and meet with different people and get people to come for the greater good of everyone. I mean, and certain people will be benefit more than others, but in general, everyone will benefit.
Cool, Monica, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I think just to add to the end of this discussion is be really film ready and friendly. Filmmakers are important. I think, Craig, your comment of going and just networking with people, and you need to recognize that people want to connect, especially at this time. And filmmakers are going to bring a huge audience with them. So see how it goes. Obviously, our destination marketing team have some budget, but to lean in, like I'm hearing now, or there could be partnerships, you can think out of the box. And in the end, we want eyeballs and we want attraction and engagement. And I think that's where the kelp forest of the story, My Octopus Teacher, is so amazing. It's connecting 1,600 kilometers of our coastline in a massive, you know, it's bigger than the Great Barrier Reef, apparently, and it's massively biodiverse, and it's driving a huge ecosystem of sustainable agriculture and fishing and so on. And some areas are protected, and that's what we want. We want to keep some of it for all of us to enjoy as tourists, as adventure tourists. And swimming in the cold water is good for your, we should get Gwyneth Paltrow here to do an insert for her show, because it's apparently very good to swim in cold water. But just be welcoming, and we're here to help everybody connect and find that next step in their career, if they're producers, or to market themselves. And thank you so much, Rob, and very nice to chat with all of you guys.
Thanks so much, Monica. I think that's all we have time for. It looks like we dead on time. But thanks very much for all you guys making the time to kind of sit with us today. I think it's been massively informative, and a lot of really good talking points have come out of it. But I think just from my side, just to close off with the fact that video and film is quite easily, you know, the most important piece of content you can start looking at right now in terms of promoting your destination. I think it's only going to get bigger. And I think COVID has also shown us that, you know, we can still live on, live online in a way when we are under these kind of circumstances. But if I can just give some advice, is to really give some proper thought to how you put that video out. And I'm sure you all have learned a lot of how you can do that from the guys today. And just ensure that you have people in your team who understand it as well, and who can manage that situation for you. But thanks to all of you again, and thanks very much to all who came to listen.